This is Stephanie Benjamin, and I'm presenting week 7 assignment questions. And so I'm going to start with question 1, and it starts with creating an array called ages. And you can see that ages here in an array bracket. Subtract the first element from the last element programmatically, and the difference between the first and the last element of the array is 90. And you see this here. And then the next step is add a new age to the array 50 and repeat the subtraction step to ensure it's dynamic. To ensure it is dynamic. And the difference between the first and last element is now 47. And I put a new age there to show that the code works. And at the end, I'll go to the console to show that all these codes worked. And then the next part of the question is use a loop to calculate the average age, and the average age prints to the console as 31.1111. And to do this, here's the loop. Total age divided by the ages.length, and then print that to the console. And again, you get the average age of 31.1111. Number 2, create an array called names. The names are Sam, Tommy, Tim, Sally, Buck, and Bob. Use a loop to calculate the average number of letters per name. And here's that loop. And you, outside of the brackets, you have the average letters equals the total letters divided by the name's length. And then printing the console.log, the average number of letters per name, prints to the console as 3.833335. And then using another loop to concatenate all the names together, separated by spaces. And that's what these double quotes are, to separate the names by spaces. And here's the other loop. And printing to the console.log, the concatenated names are Sam, Tommy, Tim, Sally, Buck, and Bob, and they are all in the console with the space between. Number 3, how do you access the last element of any array? You can use the index array.length -1, and that's to access the last element of any array. And here is the example down here. The array brackets array.length -1, and then printing it to the console, the last element, output is 5, which is the last number of the array. Number 4, how do you access the first element of any array? You can use the index 0. An example is below, kind of the same as the other one, but you use 0. And the output there is 1. Number 5, create a new array called name lengths. Write a loop to iterate over the previously created names array and add the length of each name to the names length array. I'm going to summarize it here. Initializing an array called name lengths to store the length of each name. Start a for loop where names.length is the number of elements in the names array. I'm using the length property of the name to get the number of characters in the name. Store the length in a variable called length. Push the length value into the name's length array using the push method. That's here. Number 6, write a loop to iterate over the name's length array, calculate the sum of all the elements in the array. Initialize a variable called sum to store the sum of all the elements in the array. Start a for loop where the name's length. That length is the number of elements in the name lengths array, and the length of each name to the sum variable. Print the sum to the console. Number 7, write a function that takes 2 parameters, word and n, as arguments and returns the word concatenated to itself, L. I think I screwed up here. Anyway, the code defines a function called concatenated word that takes 2 parameters, word and n. The purpose of this function is to concatenate the word parameter n number of times and print the resulting concatenated word to the console. And inside the function, a variable called concatenated word is initialized as an empty string. Then a for loop is used to iterate n times. During each iteration, the word parameter is added to the concatenated word using the plus equals operator, concatenating the word n times. The resulting concatenated word is printed to the console using console.log. The output, I use the example hello, and the 6, and the hello 6 times. Number 8, write a function that takes 2 parameters, first name and last name, and returns a full name. Full name should be the first and the last name separated by space. The get full name function takes 2 parameters, first name and last name. Inside the function, a template literal is used to concatenate the first name and last with a space in between. The resulting full name is returned from the function. The function is called with the arguments John and Doe, and the resulting full name is stored in a variable called full name. The full name variable is printed to the console using console.log. Number 9, write a function that takes an array of numbers and returns true if the sum of all the numbers in the array is greater than 100. The array of numbers function takes an array of numbers as a parameter inside the function. A variable called sum is initialized to 0. Then a for loop is used to iterate over the array of numbers. During each iteration, the current number is added to the sum variable after the loop. An if statement is used to check if the sum is greater than 100. If the sum is greater than 100, the function returns true. Otherwise, the function returns false. That's here. Number 10, write a function that takes an array of numbers and returns the average of all the elements in the array. The code defines a function called numbers array that takes an array of numbers as parameter called nums. The purpose of this function is to calculate the average of the numbers in the nums array. Inside the function, a variable called average is initialized to 0. Then for loop is used to iterate over each element in the nums array. During each iteration, the current element is added to the average variable using the operator, the plus equals operator, summing up all the numbers in the array. The average is divided by the length of the nums array to calculate the average. The calculated average is then returned from the function. Outside the function, an array called nums is defined with some numbers. The numbers array function is called with the nums array as an argument. The returned average is printed to the console using console.log along with the string numbers array. 11. Write a function that takes 2 arrays of numbers and returns true if the average of the elements of the first array is greater than the average of the elements of the second array. My notes are as follows. The code defines 2 functions, compare average and calculate average. The calculate average function takes an array, ARR, as input and calculates the average of its elements. It first checks if the length of the array is 0, and if so, it returns 0 as the average. Otherwise, it uses the reduce method to sum all the elements in the array, and it divides the sum by the length of the array to get the average. Compare average function takes two arrays, ARR1 and ARR2 as input inside the function it calls. Calculate average function on each array to calculate their respective averages. It then compared the two averages using the greater than operator. If the average of ARI is greater than average AR2, the function returns true, otherwise it returns false. 12. I think my video's too long, so here are my notes, and I'm just going to end here.